Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony Priori, and I'm the digital marketing specialist at TPGI. We're going to wait just 1 minute as people sign in, and we'll get started briefly. It's great to see so many messages come through about where everyone is from and joining in from. We're just going to give it 1 more minute to give people a chance to sign in, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, let me take a look at that. Wales, Luxembourg, San Francisco, Minnesota, Boise. Okay, great. Austin, Colorado, yes. Ohio, Toronto. Things like this is why I am in this field from a young age. I've always just loved how the web can connect people, and about whatever esoteric interest you have, you can find the people in the world that share that interest. So I'm glad that these are the people that are interested in online accessibility. It's great to meet all of you. Norway, Maryland, Oklahoma, Seattle, Washington, Germany, Istanbul. Beautiful.
Yes, it's great. All right, well, so thank you everyone for joining us today from all over the globe. It's great to see you all here. So this webinar is Understand, Test, Solve, Structure with TPGI's Aaron Farber, the Senior Accessibility Platform Consultant. So before we truly get started, I have a few housekeeping items I'd like to get through. So firstly, this session is being recorded and we will email everyone the recording after the event. Secondly, we have captions available, so feel free to use them as needed. Next, we will have time for live Q&A later in the webinar, so please use the Q&A box and we will answer as many of the questions as we have time for at the end of the presentation. And then lastly, if anyone needs an accessibility support, training, or usability testing, we will send out an email with a link to schedule a time to speak with one of our experts. So with that, I will let Aaron get started and provide an introduction for himself and get started.
Yeah, hello everyone. Welcome to Understand, Test, Solve, Structure. Date is April 12th, 2023. Let me first start by kind of introducing myself, and a little bit about my career. So, in 2016, I changed careers from public policy to tech, where we know the most exciting things are happening in how people, conduct their daily lives. And I attended a coding boot camp called App Academy in San Francisco. I'm a big supporter of these kinds of programs, and always just my own philosophy is just whenever I learn a piece of information, my first instinct is who can I share this with? So that's kind of been an arc of my career, which you may not see in this here. So from 2017 to 2019, I ran my own kind of accessibility testing and development shop, focused on small businesses, really the kind that would use WordPress or Shopify. And this gives me kind of a very pragmatic take on accessibility and a lot of empathy for organizations that, may not fully control their code bases. From 2019 to 2020, I started working at TPGI as an accessibility engineer, which is essentially largely carrying out WCAG audits on just a wide range of applications. And we do have openings for that position currently. In 2021, I became embedded with a very large tech company, helping them build an accessibility program. And in 2022, I came back to the mothership at TPGI and am an accessibility platform consultant. And in this role, I train organizations to use the ARC platform, the Accessibility Resource Center platform, to plan and execute in every area of online accessibility. So first, an agenda for today's session. One, plan for testing. 2, how assistive technologies work. 3, headings. 4, landmarks. 5, links. And 6, reading order. We're going to cover a lot of ground today very quickly. So first of all, in my role here at TPGI as, platform consultant, I largely support the ARC Empowerment Program. And, empowerment, our philosophy is empowerment is about having the evidence of the ability to do something oneself. And that's what is really the motivation for this entire Understand, Test, Solve webinar series, is empowering people to take control of their own sites and their own accessibility. So in the ARC Empowerment Program, though, how do we empower people? It's by organizations creating a repeatable, well-defined accessibility testing process using the ARC platform's tools and resources. Whether you are, trying to become, physically fit or deliver accessible websites, the key is to have clear steps that you can follow so that you know what, to be doing and, essentially at all times on that journey. So, the Understand, Test, Solve webinar series is each month, TPGI holds a webinar covering one group of accessibility guidelines, one fundamental concept in accessibility. And today, as in all of our webinars thus far, it's about a 30-minute talk, hopefully not that long. I want to make sure to have ample time for 30 minutes of Q&A. And so all of the talk and the Q&A is recorded, is available following the session. So let's look at where we are kind of in this webinar series. We have completed keyboard focus. We've completed color contrast testing. Today, we are on structure. Upcoming in May, we have name, role, and value. Upcoming in June, we have responsive design. That is, text, brief sizing, brief flow, those kinds of things. And in July, we'll cover widgets, which, we might workshop that name, to be honest, but that's going to be covering complex UI elements that don't neatly follow an established UI pattern and essentially how to test them. For past webinar slides and video recordings, go to TPGI's blog. We have a blog post for each webinar that we've done thus far. And in there, it provides links to view the videos. You have to register and then you can view the video and get access to the slides. Okay, now on to plan for testing. So, being deliberate in how you plan out your accessibility testing initiative is really fundamental to its success and ensuring everyone understands their role. On this slide, we see a picture of TPGI's homepage. We can see it's a desktop layout. It's showing the navigation bar as well as the hero section. The first step to planning out testing is to break your site into test samples. So here we see on the picture of TPGI's homepage that the primary navigation bar containing the search bar and several links has been identified, highlighted, visually highlighted as a component. The secondary navigation bar which shows also that the links have carets next to them, indicating that they're expandable, has been highlighted. And then also the hero section, which contains several call to action buttons for request a demo and schedule a call, has been visually highlighted as a component. Now, when you are breaking down a site into components, it's important to understand that testing includes all responsive breakpoints. So desktop, we can see here on this slide for the TPGI navigation bar that at desktop layout, it's a traditional web page where all the links are exposed. And in mobile layout, it is condensed into a hamburger menu with an expandable set of links. So if you were to test the navigation bar, it should include all of those breakpoints. Now, how to select a representative sample? We're talking about breaking down your site into these test samples. Well, first of all, consider website structure and purpose. Second, include a range of content types, that are representative of the entire site. So videos, forms, and whatever else. Next, select template components as well as page-specific content. And that's very important, and we'll talk about that kind of a little bit on this next slide. Next, cover high visibility, high traffic user journeys. It's most important to test the content that people will actually be interacting with. Next, each sample should be around the same size and level of effort to test. And that is really kind of something that a lot of times is not mentioned, and it really facilitates the workflow of manual testing. So why select a representative sample? Well, it's not feasible to test every page. Work can be broken into manageable tasks. That's one of the reasons that it's important to have test samples that are around the same size, so that you can have a good barometer of how much testing has been done and how much is to go. And so that you can also divide work up equally. When you break down a site into samples, it allows you to easily delegate work to the appropriate stakeholder and role. Most larger organizations will have multiple teams working on a single product. So to understand the source of where issues are, well, you can send them directly to those teams when you do the work of planning out your testing and doing kind of like sample-based testing. And lastly, it facilitates communication and cross-collaboration. So after you have your set of test samples, the next step is to group related accessibility guidelines. So that enables testing to be done by roles with just the required skill set, and it increases efficiency and reduces duplicative work. That is from shifting between unrelated accessibility guidelines. In one moment, having the tools open to test color contrast, then moving to the next thing to test, something that is really for assistive technologies like screen readers. Well, it's cumbersome and does take up additional time. And lastly, when you group the related accessibility guidelines, it leads to full WCAG coverage because more people can get involved in the accessibility testing. It's not something that is simply for one person or one team. nor is that probably feasible to do it that way. So today, the group of accessibility guidelines, and I should say that structure and, in a sense, page navigation actually interact with many different accessibility guidelines, but these are the ones that are most clear to me. 1.31, info and relationships. 1.32, meaningful sequence, which is actually a level A. I apologize for that typo. It says double A. 2.44, length, purpose, and context. So those are the three WCAG success criteria that we'll really be mainly focusing on today. So why are we grouping them into this set of guidelines? Well, because when you're testing page structure and navigation, it does not require an engineering background. It also does not require using developer tools, as in opening up, right-clicking on a web page and opening up the developer tools. Those developer tools. And they also require, to test these success criteria, only requires a basic familiarity with a screen reader. Navigating complex UI elements and then other things requires much more skill with using a screen reader. And lastly, it works with doing the testing that we described today works with any browser, although it is best performed on a desktop, Mac, and PC. So as you are planning out testing after you've broken down your application, you've divided the work, the next step is for each member on your team to consume role-based trainings to understand the fundamental principles of accessibility for their role. So that is one in the ARC platform, which I promote, I'm here kind of promoting in a sense, right? We provide Tutor, which is a set of self-paced accessibility training modules for each role. And they take probably 15 to 45 minutes to complete each. And what's great about these roles is I find so many accessibility trainings online, they're very voluminous and they contain a lot of content that was really beyond the scope of someone's role or even perhaps kind of their skill. So to have them role-based makes it so that each person in your organization understands their responsibilities related to accessibility. So to conduct the testing that we talk about today, one of the first steps would be to first take the accessibility and front-end development module to consume that material. Tools and resources. The main strength of testing with ARC is that each rule is paired with select resources from ARC's expansive knowledge base. This knowledge base is really the culmination of everything that we do at TPGI over decades. And so it's something that we're very proud of, and it makes a huge impact on people being able to advance accessibility and improve their site while growing their own understanding. So the first step is to understand. So for each rule, we provide usually an excerpt from the WCAG reference module in our ARC knowledge base. And this summarizes each WCAG success criteria, including draft WCAG 2.2 success criteria. And from this, we can understand the significance of an accessibility guideline. Second is we have to test. So even when we get results from automated monitoring, manual testing is required in order to understand its impact on user experience. So the ARC knowledge base provides the WCAG test web module, which provides step-by-step manual testing procedures for every accessibility guideline. With this resource, you can replicate TPGI's internal processes for accessibility testing. When we have many testers here, and how we enforce uniformity in our results is we all are using this resource. And lastly, solve. Solve an issue with battle-tested, clear steps for implementation. So the accessible web content development module provides detailed instructions with code samples, expected behaviors, and all of this can be used not only to fix issues, but preemptively, right? Like if you were to assign someone on your team to build a particular UI element, you may refer them to first look at this module. now that we have done the next step of training, well, we have to equip our team with the appropriate testing tools. So for today, that's a screen reader, and we see JAWS and NVDA as well as VoiceOver pictured, but I will focus on JAWS and NVDA for numerous reasons, which we'll kind of discuss a little bit. Art Toolkit, which is our free Chrome extension. We'll talk more about that, as well as JAWS Inspect, which is a licensed feature which vastly simplifies screen reader accessibility testing. So, just with any topic, I think it's important to start at the top. How do screen readers work? Screen readers create a virtual buffer, and programs like the browser expose information to the virtual buffer. So here we can see a diagram that shows a user with a computer equipped with a screen reader. The screen reader has created a virtual buffer, which the screen reader user is interacting with. And then we see the browser and its accessibility APIs is exposing information to that virtual buffer. And the browser, through its accessibility APIs, is determining what to expose based on the web page and its author-defined HTML code. So screen reader users, they don't exactly interact directly with a web page. It's a complex topic. Next, and how screen readers work. Well, with this virtual buffer, screen reader users have methods for navigation far beyond what is available using the browser's default. So, when we are just using our own keyboard, we can simply tab through a site, and we tab from one interactive element to the next. However, screen reader users, due to this virtual buffer, have many other navigation shortcuts that they can use. This is how they are able to jump from one heading to the next, from one link to another, or find whatever kind of element on a page. And just think about it from the perspective of a screen reader user, is that kind of, in a sense, a screen reader, since it is reading something, they're interacting with one part of the page at once. It's not the same as a visual experience where you can perceive the entire page, in a sense, at once. So here we see a chart, which is from the WebAIM Screen Reader Survey in 2021. And it is a pie chart about the primary method for finding information on a lengthy web page. We can see that 67.7% of screen reader users that responded to the survey, this non-scientific survey, about 2/3 navigate headings. 8% simply read the page. So they simply just move down the page from top to bottom. 14% use find or some other, feature, kind of like you might use, like Control F in a sense. And then we have some that, we see that 7% navigate using links. And then we see a very small pie slice, probably it looks like 2 or 3%, that actually navigate using landmarks and regions. So headings is the primary vehicle through which screen readers navigate the site. Now, one more thing about screen readers is that, screen readers strip away visual presentation and HTML elements which do not convey semantic meaning. So following this session and included in these slides, we provide a JavaScript bookmarklet, which allows you to extract CSS to view a web page without CSS, which is kind of analogous to how a screen reader user might view, essentially what the screen reader user is interacting with. So here on this slide, we see a picture of TPGI's website with style sheets removed. And we can see that, the web is really a large collection of lists. And it's important to understand here that, well, CSS and other things like that, that's information that's not conveyed to screen reader users. We can see that here. So, and back to this question again, it's really important to emphasize that with the virtual buffer, screen reader users can take advantage, can still navigate the site much more efficiently than they would using the browser's default. Now, testing with JAWS. JAWS is the most robust screen reader, simply put. According to WebAIM's non-scientific survey of screen reader users, JAWS is the primary screen reader used on the web. Testing with JAWS most resembles the user experience for people that rely on screen readers to navigate the web. And I say that from my own experience, and we can discuss that further. JAWS does require a license. If you do not have a license, JAWS has 40-minute mode. However, and which is enough time to do some cursory testing of a particular element or a component. However, if you want to use it for another 40 minutes, the computer must be rebooted. But it is an option to do it this way. I don't recommend it. Now, no special configure is required to use JAWS for testing. It's pretty much ready out of the box. Now, I am device and screen reader agnostic in a sense. I promote accessibility, not just with TPGI and Freedom Scientific's own products. Therefore, we're going to talk also how to test using NVDA. NVDA is a free screen reader that is available online also for Windows. And let's kind of go through now. NVDA, in my opinion, cannot be used for accessibility testing so much right out of the box. Certain steps must be taken first. One, so here we have detailed instructions of how to configure NVDA. My first step here is to use the NVDA modifier key plus N as in Nathan, to open its context menu, expand tools, and activate the speech viewer. Now, the speech viewer is not fully keyboard accessible. If you want to increase the text size, you'll have to use the mouse wheel or pinch to zoom to increase that text. And what's great about the speech viewer is it allows you to see what's being said. You don't necessarily have to have the volume allowed. And it's also great for screenshots. Now, testing with NVDA. Next step is to turn off mouse tracking. I believe mouse tracking is enabled by default. Moving the mouse over a control does not provide the full announcements, and it contrasts with the screen reader user experience. So to simply use mouse tracking, that's not an acceptable way to test using a screen reader. Moreover, when you have mouse tracking enabled, just any jitter of the mouse triggers a new announcement. It's very unwieldy. So we open again the context menu, we expand preferences, select settings, we select mouse, the mouse tab, and we disable mouse tracking. Now, the last step for testing with NVDA is I like to personally have a visual indicator for the virtual cursor. The virtual cursor being where the screen reader user is on that virtual buffer that we've been alluding to. And again, this facilitates, screenshots, and it helps people that are less experienced using a screen reader, helps them understand kind of what's going on the page, where they are. Now, for screen reader testing, and I look at this topic from the prism of people that are kind of newer to accessibility testing, is know the page level navigation shortcuts. That's really what we're focusing on today. We're not focusing on actually interacting with form elements or reading through the page. We're primarily concerned with these page level navigation shortcuts for list headings, list links, and list landmarks. And it usually is some combination of screen reader modifier key or the action key, they have different names, plus function 5, function 6, or function 7 keys. That'll generate that list of page level information. Now, screen readers do have a learning curve. So another option is you can test with JAWS Inspect. You can easily, through one click, generate a transcript of how JAWS reads a page. You can create a full page report or have a live log of how JAWS is reading the page as you navigate yourself. Here we have on the next slide a screenshot of JAWS Inspect, and we see the speech viewer, which is, again, providing a transcript of your navigation through the site while you're using JAWS Inspect. And I should note, to use JAWS Inspect, you do not require a JAWS license. It's a separate license. And our toolkit is a free Chrome browser extension that allows you to easily scan anything appearing in your browser, which means that you can scan pages which require authentication, pages at a specific point in a user journey. Maybe you clicked on something for a dialog to appear. And our toolkit also mirrors some of the functionality in screen readers in that it visually identifies headings, links, landmarks, and it provides automated testing to help guide the manual testing experience. So our toolkit can be kind of like a lightweight way to stimulate some of the testing that you do as a screen reader, but it's not the same experience. So, I am always talking about ARC monitoring, which is automated testing, which where ARC monitoring through the ARC platform essentially runs its set of accessibility rules on a website or web application. It's important to understand what ARC Toolkit is in relationship to the ARC platform. Well, in ARC monitoring, we display test results with access to all of ARC's tools and resources. It's knowledge base. Whereas for ARC Toolkit, you go to the page itself and you run the test, essentially the same engine as ARC monitoring. And there with ARC Toolkit, you can visually inspect the elements. Okay, now on to the core technical topics of today's session. Because again, I want to emphasize why we spend so much time here at the beginning going over some of these things with the ARC platform and testing tools and technologies is nothing that I go over today is my own. Everything that I go through today is from ARC's knowledge base and really just some kind of reduction of it. So I'm trying to provide the steps for your teams to go about using the ARC platform. This is not something that is, when I go through this, is not something that's like based on my own experience or my own heuristics. This is all information available in our knowledge base. So first, with headings, we can pull up the elements list in JAWS. Here is JAWS modifier key plus F6. And we can see here that on this screenshot of the heading list, that we have each heading as well as a number representing the heading level. It's an easy way to visualize the heading structure of your page. NVDA has similar functionality. So, okay, headings can skip levels. Skipping levels is not a WCAG violation by itself. Multiple H1s is not a WCAG violation. Headings must follow a hierarchical structure. And I don't even want to say that so much. It's more accurately a logical structure. So it's not something that, we need to be so dogmatic about, like H1 must contain H2 and H2 must contain H3. However, what is a WCAG violation in headings? Well, visually prominent text that organizes content, must be identified as a heading. When headings are solely identified through CSS, i.e. there's bold font styling, that's a WCAG violation. Because that information, that heading status is not conveyed to screen reader users. The browser's accessibility API, right, is not exposing that as a heading to the virtual buffer, to the screen reader. Therefore, they can't navigate it to it, and they don't have a full understanding of the page's structure. Now, landmarks. Landmarks are something that, as we see from that initial screen reader survey screenshot, not a way that many screen reader users actively navigate the web. It's kind of seems to be a tool of secondary aid. So kind of along those lines, a site does not have to use landmarks. Lack of landmarks is not inherently a WCAG violation. It's only a WCAG violation if landmarks are not used logically. So examples of illogical landmark structure may be footers containing footers, or a navigation region which contains an H1, right? Because then the H1 would be the same on every page of your site. These are examples. And again, it's thinking critically about page structure. Now, links. To test for links, we open the list of links that navigation shortcut at the page level. And the best practice here is that the link's destination or its purpose should be clear from that link text alone. So, however, it's only a WCAG violation if one cannot determine the link's destination from the links immediately surrounding context. So, important to say here that link purpose and context, which we were talking about, this is a WCAG level AA success criteria. Link purpose, where and I'm somewhat blanking on the name, but the link purpose where you must be able to understand the destination from the link text alone, that's actually a AAA success criteria. However, it's really a great best practice for the link destination purpose to be clear from link text alone. Screen reader users having to open a page and go to a link and read around the link to understand the destination, that significantly reduces their ability to efficiently navigate the web. So on this slide, we see a screenshot of NVDA's elements list, and we see a list of links, and we see homepage, home, about us, services, partners, customers, projects, careers, contacts, service 1, and it's actually misspelled, Civis 1, Civis 2, Civis 3, Civis 4, Civis 5, Civis 6. Next link is just A. Next link is read more. And we can see from all of those examples from Civis and read more that a screen reader can't determine the destination of those links. They have to go to those links and read around the surrounding context to understand the destination. Now, reading order is the last thing that I'll discuss today, and certainly one that I hope to get questions about, which is reading order does not have to match the page's visual order. No. However, the reading order must match how one would logically read through the page. So an example that I might use here is we sometimes see sites where in the main content region, there's sidebar, and then there's like a main content area where there's like a blog or a big block of text. The sidebar doesn't necessarily, I guess, have to go before the main content area, right? Because somebody may view the page as, oh, well, I read the article and then I look at the link. But in general, right, like usually people would be interested in the navigation controls before engaging with page level content. So maybe that is a WCAG violation. So, it's for reading order, some examples are truly definitive and everyone would agree upon them if you have the reading order of a page. And reading order, I should say, is determined by the order of content in the HTML source code. That's what largely determines the page's reading order. However, if you were using a screen reader, if you were doing that testing and visually it was jumping from top to bottom of the page, obviously that's not how someone would logically read through the page. Usually people are going to read through the page top to bottom and left to right, for English at least. So that's really our goal here to model that. It's not that we have to necessarily move in a particular way through the page. It's not that rigid, but it must be logical. And that's why even our toolkit and all these tools do use automated testing to help you visualize page order and all those kind of things. Ultimately, human judgment is always required. So our toolkit does provide a feature within it to visualize the page reading order. Alternatively, right, if we were to strip away the CSS on the page, that tells you the reading order. So now with that note here about reading order, want to go to the questions. And so let's see what people are asking. I'm going to go over to the chat and see what we have here. We don't have too many questions yet. And I should say we can have questions about the slides. We can have questions about anything related to these topics. I really, this is very much your time. So let me see here. Someone says, how can we open JAWS Speech Viewer? Okay, well, JAWS is Speech Viewer. I'm actually referring to JAWS Inspect, which is a licensed tool that you can contract for from TPGI. Now, JAWS does provide a speech history feature, which allows you to visualize the transcript of what you did in your JAWS session. However, it is not dynamic. So you can't simply have like the JAWS speech history and be using that, so to say, as a caption panel. So with VoiceOver, VoiceOver does provide a caption panel. However, you can't scroll up in the caption panel and view past things. Maybe there's a way to export what's been said by VoiceOver in a session, but I'm not aware of it. And this is one, so that's one benefit of JAWS Inspect, is that you get access to that whole transcript. You can go through it easily on your own, and you can automatically generate that transcript. I like in NVDA Speech Viewer that you can simply scroll up and view everything that's been said. With these transcripts, it removes debate about what the screen reader actually said. And I find that's something that occurs a lot with engineers. Next questions here. What are the query reporting capabilities of ARC tools? Okay, well, ARC platform is made at the platform's core is ARC monitoring, which can evaluate all kinds of web content automatically. So ARC monitoring essentially runs our set of automated accessibility rules on a website, a web application, or user journeys, which you've defined. And it flags these issues. And again, each issue is paired with select resources from ARC's knowledge base. Now, and I should say also, before I move on here, so there is also ARC Toolkit, which is a free Chrome extension. It uses essentially the same set of automated rules as ARC monitoring, but you don't have access to ARC's knowledge base. And ultimately, to me, that's the great strength of automated testing, is that clear steps on how to understand, test, solve each issue. And those are things that, again, only comes from the platform. ARC also has an API, so you can automate accessibility testing from the command line via shell scripts, or, it's a RESTful API. You can use it in a lot of different ways, Next question here says, sorry to just ask you to repeat yourself. Hey, it's fine. Could you repeat the first ARC learning module that you recommended? Yes, accessibility and front-end development. That's a great one for just your average, for every engineer to take. It's 15 to 45 minutes. And within the ARC platform, we do provide a way for managers or other users to determine whether you've accessed that module. So it's a good way to help verify completion. There's other ones too. Also, if you're an engineer, I also recommend ARIA Part 1 and ARIA Part 2. Those are great ones. They're slightly more advanced. That's why in the order of this webinar series, we're going to be covering that in the future. That's really going to be our widget webinar. Is the resources for testing you mentioned open to the public, or do you have to subscribe? Yes, you have to subscribe to the ARC platform. Any subscription level will give you access to all of ARC's knowledge base resources. So that contains, again, our manual testing procedures, not only for the web, but also for iOS and Android. It contains development techniques for the web, as well as all, iOS and Android again. We also provide trainings and techniques for PDF, remediation and testing, user research, really a wide range of things. And the lowest subscription level for ARC is simply $29. So, and again, I was looking at our knowledge base the other day, and our repository, how we maintain it. I noticed we have over 10,000 commits. Like we've put this has really been something that we've worked on for many, many years. And it's really how I've learned about accessibility myself. Please link to the subscription. Sure. I'll just type it in the chat for people. Whoops, wrong link. Sorry, apologies, actually. It's funny. TPG ARC is actually where the ARC platform is located. So the tpgi.com ARC platform is the correct link. Yeah. And from that, if you expand the knowledge bar, you'll see if you expand the navigation menu, you'll see links to the ARC Empowerment Program, which again, then we really, in the ARC Empowerment Program, and as I think something that you'll realize as you look at this knowledge base is that, accessibility has so many suggested tips and tricks and techniques and best practices. It's hard for some to even know where to get started. There's so many best practices, it seems like you can't even do all of them. So in the ARC Empowerment Program, we focus organizations on just the most impactful next steps. And we move in a linear way that really matches an organization growing its accessibility initiative over time. So we're starting at the lowest and working our way to from just doing page level scanning using our automated tool to ultimately creating even using our API to create custom reports and whatnot. So I have a lot of fun doing it. We really work with all types of organizations, big, small. Yeah, it's a great experience, and I encourage all of you to attend one of our free empowerment sessions that we do once a month. And that can be accessed from I'll provide a link here. So 3 times a month, we do a session which really covers the first steps in using the ARC platform. And whether or not you use ARC, I think that you'll learn a lot from that session just in terms of how to plan and execute accessibility. That's what the session is called. Oh, I see we have a question in the chat. It's very long here. So, sophistication dilemma regarding non-decorative alt text. The audience is cognitively and visually disabled adults from my website, now in the designer developer handoff stage. The website will include many, many JPEG images, photos with text, up to 200 characters of text in the image, but it seems nonsense. Okay, it says, I could create lengthy and complex, complete alt text faithfully quoting every single word and character in the image, but it seems nonsensical for my audience. They will never read it. Given my very special and small audience will never read the alt text, what is your recommendation? Strictly follow WCAG alt text rules, which are simply absurd and will call for lengthy alt text that is never read, or write a brief alt text that is simple and would consist of a brief sentence? Well, it's an interesting question, So first of all, right, like the number, the way to address images of text as an issue, of course, is to provide, if the text is to recreate that text using styled HTML text. So that's the number one recommendation I have, is simply, where you're going to use these images, provide text that is restating, use actual HTML text for the text that's in that image. And now, the other thing I would say here is like, I can see your point that we don't want to have long alt, and I should also say an advantage to using styled HTML text is that alt text is announced by a screen reader as like a big single stream of text. So let's say it's like 50 words. There's no way for a screen reader user to like fast forward through that. Whereas if it was actual HTML text on the page adjacent to an image, screen reader user can skip it, they can move to the next sentence, whatever. So that's my greatest recommendation. Now, I think one good thing for site owners to do, which is why screen reader testing is very helpful, is that it makes you think about your page in a different way. So you're saying that, well, the text on these images is not meaningful to a screen reader user. Okay. Well, is it meaningful then to a sighted user? Maybe that text should not be presented for anyone. Maybe it should just be a shorter amount of text. And again, accessibility is about ensuring the same experience for all people. And so when you start thinking about, well, the limitations that, the limited abilities that some have, it makes you think about, again, what is really meaningful information to convey. So that's my response is again, is use the regular HTML text, or maybe change those images to not have so much text. Like it sounds like it doesn't need to have all that information. All right, let me see in the chat if we got any more. How can we enable speech viewer in narrator? I am not aware of I do not have an answer for that, actually, my friend. I'm not a big narrator user. I want to emphasize that JAWS is the most robust screen reader. So, even if you were to work at a big tech company that is makes Windows, you would be probably using JAWS. So we could use narrator, but again, it doesn't really resemble the user experience for screen reader users. So again, I discourage using tools that are not used by the large number of people. For example, like VoiceOver on iOS is the most popular screen reader in America. However, VoiceOver on desktop Mac is only used by according again to WebAIM Screen Reader Survey, is only used by a couple of % of people. So really, like, there's a lot of developers I see that test applications using desktop VoiceOver when it's a tool that's not really used by the end user. But hey, we're developers, we love our Macs and doing all that stuff. Well, not me so much. I like Windows a lot too. So that's my response for narrator. I don't know the answer to that question. If someone has it, please share it with Amit. But again, I strongly recommend you to use a tool that would be used by the people that are interacting with your application. Well, I don't see any more questions. So I'm going to give it 1 sec, and then maybe we'll end a moment early here. So going once. Going twice. Okay. Well, hey everyone. I really enjoy doing these short sessions with everyone. I like that we're going to be back here a month from now, and you can come and access these sessions at your own, convenience. And you are free to connect with me on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or just hey, give us the, I love talking to people that are just interested in accessibility or are ARC users especially. And if you're an ARC user, I want to extend the offer to have office hours with me at least once. So I'm happy to work one-on-one with you. So, all right, everyone. So please, I want to say one last, we have one more question. Is what's the best combination with Chrome browser? JAWS. And also NVDA. Those are the 2 best. And lastly, accessibility does not happen by accident. Accessibility is not the default. Accessibility requires planning and effort and organization and leadership, which is really done by people like you on this call today. So thank you all for your attention, and I wish you have a great week. All right, everybody. So bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Aaron.